Welcome to ESG Decoded, where we unravel the business complexities at the intersection of environmental, social, and governance issues.
I'm Erika Schiller, and I'm joined by my ClimeCo colleagues, Emma Cox and Anna Stablem.
Get ready to explore the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and ethical leadership, the dynamic forces shaping our global economy.
From climate action to social responsibility, we're here to decode the ESG landscape by interviewing interesting leading figures across the globe that will empower you with actionable insights.
Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just embarking on your sustainability journey, this podcast is your compass for navigating the future of responsible business practices.
Let's decode ESG together.
Hello, and welcome to ESG Decoded. I'm your host, Erika Schiller. And today we're going to talk about how sustainability can be used as a lever for business transformation. I'm joined by Jeffrey Whitford, Vice President of Sustainability and Social Business Innovation for MilliporeSigma, a life science company. Jeffrey leads initiatives that connect sustainability and business growth, going beyond company goals to empower industry-wide transformation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here, Erika. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Great. So I think we should start broadly around vision and how do we approach sustainability in a large company. So can you share about how you align sustainability goals with business performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So our company is a really old company. A lot of people may not have awareness of MilliporeSigma. They may not have awareness of the global company, which is Merck KGaA, Darmstadt, Germany. And that's a mouthful because back in 1917 in World War I, any German-owned assets of companies were expropriated and created into separate companies. So we are known in the US and Canada as one thing due to that legal agreement in 1917. Nobody thought the internet was going to come, so it makes it, certainly interesting in terms of name sharing, if you will. But because of this and the age of our company, right? It's a company that's got a bold vision of what we're trying to do, but it also is rooted in a very methodical approach to how we do our business. And so sustainability is one of those things where you could really look at this and say, okay, I'm just going to be compliance-based or use a risk-based approach. And let's just say I was very different in terms of how I approached it and really thinking about this from an entrepreneurial or opportunity-based approach. And what I looked at it early on, and I can't say I knew what I was doing intentionally, but now looking back, the hunch that I had was how you connect sustainability and business in a way that makes it business relevant. So it's nice because it fits exactly in the question, but it really changed how we formulated it to say, yeah, doing compliance is one thing, but actually the interesting space above compliance, that kind of blue sky space, is actually where the value creation happens. And when you have value creation, you can bring value creation to the business and quantify what that means. It changes the entire conversation about how you resource the ambition of what you're going to do, how you connect that to achieving something that your customer's looking for. And by that positioning, it really changed the ability and the ambition for our organization of what we were willing to do. And I think that for me has been a fundamental difference about how we approach sustainability compared to a lot of other organizations, because we have said, there's a very clear business lever here. And you can look at it besides the customer element, you can look at it to how it's incremental for our business in terms of identifying savings, reducing waste, all of those things, sustainability, but actually just business relevant. So I'm one of those people, I don't care what you call it. At the end of the day, if you're smart enough to be able to capture it, quantify it, and extract the benefit out to the business, and it's sustainability relevant, well, all the better, because it just continues to support the direction, the intention of what we're doing as an organization.
So I guess two questions. One, how long have you been doing this at MilliporeSigma?
So I'm slightly a dinosaur when it comes to this. So I've been with the organization almost 21 years. In just, I think, about 20 days, it'll be 21 years. I started out as an intern proofreading catalogs. So no one would have said, oh, yeah, that's going to be the guy who works on sustainability. But a few years after that, and I actually volunteered into this job about 6 months into starting my full-time job with the organization. So now it's been about 18 years that I've been focused in sustainability at the organization, leading it and driving it within the company.
That's really cool. So when you have all these different options of what to do in terms of tying sustainability and business performance, how do you prioritize which challenges to tackle first?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been really fortunate with, and it's once again, because of how we framed that and the results that we've driven thus far, I have a remarkable level of freedom to explore ideas and bring those ideas to our leaders and talk to them about why they matter and how they connect to achieving the goals that we've set. And so, one, I just have a fantastic job because I get to constantly explore and discover. And it's not just about exploring and discover, it's figuring out and building on a legacy of execution, because it's that execution that reinforces the ability to explore. And because of this, we take a really broad look. We take a holistic life cycle approach at our product portfolio, how things move through the system, to then look and kind of bucket activities to understand where's the impact. So you can start with data. I mean, at the end of the day, the data is your guiding source to understand what does the footprint look like. So for us, just to kind of shorthand this, 8.8% of our footprint is scope 1, about 2.3% is scope 2, and the remainder, so about 89%, if you will, is scope 3, right? So very quickly, you can see the line out, and then you break down further and get into scope 3. 61% of the footprint sits in 3.1, purchase goods and services. So ultimately, you now have a bigger picture to understand where you operate from. And the reality is, and kind of we'll steal a movie title from just a couple of years ago, it's everything, everywhere, all at once, right? Like that's really what we have to do. But it's about having clarity about how these things work together. So if we think about scopes 1 and 2, one element that we need to think about first is how do we make investments to decrease our energy utilization? How do we make those facilities more efficient? So I just need to have that kind of as an always-on engine. So that's got to be something that we need to secure the funding, demonstrate the financial benefit for driving that efficiency, and have it go, right? We fundamentally transform how we do business and then also how we change new facility or CapEx expenditures, so new builds that we bring into the system. So we're not going back and correcting. So you've got that element kind of like always on. And then you turn your focus to scope 3 and you look at it, and obviously there's a big bleeping red light on purchase goods and services. Now, ultimately, you could just say, oh, I'm going to go talk to my suppliers. Well, that's a place to start, but we don't have control over that. So if we need to fundamentally think about the ways to not totally cede all of our responsibility out of our hands and to our suppliers and hope that we can influence them, we need to think about how do we actually transform our product portfolio. So that means we need to go back over to our own operations and think about our R&D function, for instance. So now with our 1,900 R&D scientists, we've implemented our Shape Design for Sustainability system. It's a quantitative system to help our R&D scientists assess and really give them the direction of where to head with reducing the impact of our products. So using this 7 main categories with 47 criterion that we quantitatively assess against, we're helping to drive dematerialization. We're helping to think about, like, do you need a much electrical demand for that product? Could you use a bio-based polymer in that single-use plastic item that a scientist or a researcher is going to use to produce a product to do an experiment? Could you use a bio-based solvent to help achieve that? Because if you can, it fundamentally then changes what the request is when you go to the suppliers. So I think we take an approach to say, how do we let the data inform us? But we also think about it in a dynamic kind of situation to understand it's not just usually one channel or one place. You've got to think about it about all of these touch points, but by addressing all of these things and bringing them together, you reinforce the wheel, but then you also help bring clarity to how you're going to attack this. I think one of the things as a kind of like a final on that, a couple of years ago, we were doing a strategy development exercise where we were increasing our investment in sustainability and going through that process. My boss at the time asked me, was like, could we just do like 2 or 3 things? And I laughed and I was like, I wish I would have fewer white hairs and this would be much easier. But the reality is, and that's part of the education process, is like we were proposing, I think it was 14 to 16 work streams to help make this whole thing work, because you can't just go and address one thing. That's the reality. You've got to have a multi-pronged approach that addresses all of these things, but then you have to understand dynamically, where does more attention need to be paid so that you can see, maybe you don't need to have it here and now, but you need to start doing the work to drive the here and now, maybe 2-3 years down the road, 5 years, 10 years. So I think that's how we've approached it, to have data inform us, matched up with how business works. And that's a pretty powerful combination for us to be able to get the engines turning and the ship turned in the direction we need it to head.
Okay, so I think, when you're talking about using these different data points and potentially redesigning how you produce products or how you use different resources, that's mostly inside the fence. When you think about the scope 3 and your suppliers, how do you help your suppliers meet your sustainability goals?
This is really important. So before I moved into sustainability, so right before, I had a 1-year assignment in procurement. And when it happened, I kind of was like, what did I do to deserve this? But the reality was, it was the most fantastic thing that would benefit me. And I didn't understand how or why until much later. But ultimately, in that exercise of, I bought a whole variety of different things and negotiated, a variety of different products that we were purchasing. One of the things that I did is I bought snake venom from a man in Louisiana. And you may be like, that's the most random, and it was the most random thing. I'll be able to, I can affirm that. But it helps you then put into context, and let's be honest, that person's CO2 footprint is minimal. But nonetheless, what does an individual like that need to help them navigate this? Because we sell more than 300,000 products, just to put that in context. Our supply chain, tens of thousands of suppliers that help make that possible. We're buying small amounts of things here and there to then make this bigger picture. So it just makes a more complex environment. And you then realize you're dealing with a lot of small and medium enterprises. And if you're a small and medium enterprise, you most likely do not have a team of sustainability experts like we do. And if you don't have a team of sustainability experts, where do you start? This is not a journey for the weak of heart. It is intense. How do you do an emissions inventory? Well, once I've done an emissions inventory, what do I need to do? What are those next steps? So one of the things that we've realized is, and because I also, on the flip side of this, am working with our customers a lot. So I've sat through various types of meetings where, I've gotten hammered by suppliers. They're like, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix this? And I'm like, ooh, you do not realize that this is a two-way street. I can do a lot, but you're also going to have to change how you formulate, how you do these scientific experiments to be able to take advantage of new solutions. You can't just expect to keep using the same old thing. That's not reality. But because of that, it changes then how we interact with our supply chain. We're not coming with sticks. We're coming with carrots. How do we partner with you? How do we change that paradigm to be here for something that seems insurmountable? How do we be clear about how we can help you and the ways that we can take the successes and the learnings that we've had and turn them into easily executable toolkits that have step-by-step instructions of how to do an emission inventory, how to get access to renewable electricity if you are a small buyer, because that can be a daunting task. When we did our first virtual power purchase agreement, we did one of the first big aggregated buys because we weren't even big enough. We're a big company. We weren't even big enough to go to the market and get our own virtual power purchase agreement. We had a buy with Synopsys, Akamai, and Uber. So if you are a small company that does maybe millions or 100 million in sales, what are you going to do, right? And I think this is where we've had a clear recognition of the ways that we can take what we've done and help them. I've had suppliers say to me, well, what are you going to pay us to do this? I'm like, well, once again, we've missed the big headline here, which is also figuring out the ways that you can use this to create a business case within your own organization. So if we look at energy efficiency at a facility, I can guarantee that most of these suppliers that we're working with could make some investments in CapEx that would pay back in less than 3 years, that would also create savings opportunities to help them invest in other sustainability things. And on top of that, I'm not going to come and ask you knowing that there's savings there that we could be getting on our product because that could be more efficient. I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to let you have that, but I'm also going to say there's a great way for you to invest that back into developing alternatives. So it's those types of lights that we try to shine on things while doing it in a partnering manner that is positive and supportive versus, shaming versus really beating people up, because I just don't think that's the way we're going to get it done. But I think this is how we have been approaching it. So our first set of toolkits are available on our website, publicly available for our suppliers. We've been doing meetings with them. We had regional meetings where we talked about this development, how we're going to be doing this, working with them to participate, use them, get feedback. How is it working? What could change? What else do they need? So we're looking at a slate of, I think, at least 8 to 10 different guides on very specific topics to help them navigate all of the things that sustainability is.
That's great. And so those are available for anyone who wants to look at them, but targeted for your suppliers.
Right. They're not behind a paywall. It's free. And I think that's also part of the role that we play. As a multiplier, how are we getting resources out there that are clear, easy to understand, and hopefully based in best practices to drive sustainability achievement?
Thanks. Well, I'm sure we'll link those in the show notes. Can you share a bit about how you embed sustainability into the company culture so that it's not just your team doing sustainability, but everyone's responsibility?
Yeah. As part of that SD process that I mentioned, one of the guiding lights that I was given was this needs to be systematic. It can't be a project here, a project there, because I think we often see that in a lot of organizations. And while I think our work had been systematic, we decided to go to like another level of systematic, which is really fantastic, because when you have that kind of mandate, it's ridiculous if you don't take advantage of it. So we definitely tried to take advantage of it. So when we're told you need to be systematic, you take a step back and let's go back to that product lifecycle approach. You understand which of the players fit within a system and then say, okay, if we're looking at things like product development, for instance, I told you that we've got this new system that's in place. Well, it's just not a fun thing that people get to do. I was pretty unpopular with 1900 R&D scientists for quite some time when we launched that, right? Because it was like more work, a new thing, discomfort, which we get. We understand that's part of this. But now it's systematic in the protocol. It is part of the product development process. It's embedded into how that process happens. So no longer is it optional or nice to have. And that fundamentally starts to shift culture. You move from, I really don't like Jeffrey, to, okay, I mean, I still don't love it, but okay. Then to, this is doing something. And then I think we can do more. And it's been very fascinating to watch that process happen. And it's happening in different speeds within the organization. But I was in France earlier this year talking with one of our product teams, and they kind of walked me through their process, what the journey's been like for them since October 2022 when this went into place. And it was fascinating to get their perspective. They started out with basically a bunch of products that they didn't really matter, let's be honest. Like, they contribute to the bottom line, but they weren't the showstoppers. And they were like, we've achieved a lot and our confidence has grown. And so now we've got these 2 big product lines and we're going to start going after those to figure out how we can integrate bio-based polymers into them, which will fundamentally transform the portfolio and so many other things that go off of them. That's exactly it, right? Like, that's when you know, and I think it's validation for me of the process. I'm not saying I know everything about change management, but I think it validated what I assumed was going to happen, and just reminding people it takes time. I think when you're in it and you are just like, oh gosh, we got to get these results, give ourselves some space and grace and realize we are undertaking a major transformation. This isn't just like moving a few needles here or there. We're trying to move a lot of needles. And I think we're seeing it happen, but it's that type of mentality is like, you have to figure out where are those key leverage points. When my team member who was responsible for this came to me and told me that it had been improved, I like laughed out loud because I honestly thought he was joking, because I just assumed it would be next to impossible for us to make it through that process of getting into a very heavily documented process. But they did it. And I think it also proves to our team, this is possible, right? We can do this. And so we use those successes to build off of others, to change our CapEx process, for instance, to change, let's see, less than 3 years ago, we had very small amounts of money to invest in our facilities. We now have secured approximately 150 million euro to invest in our facilities through 2033. but that's systematic. We now have a process that we run teams through to identify the projects for the coming year. We're wrapping that process up right now. We're slated for approximately 15 million in investment this coming year. We did 12 million in this current year. We'll do 15 million next year. So we're building our capability and building that process, building our engineering teams ambition and understanding. We're working on also investing in training for them to be certified energy managers at their facility. So it's also fundamentally upskilling and changing our organization's capabilities that then embeds and makes bigger, more ambitious, kind of like instead of, oh, we're going to update that lighting to, oh, we're going to think about building management as a whole. And I think that's kind of how we've been thinking about this across the board. What are the ways you systematically get into processes, change, and kind of come along? Because it's also like, these aren't our processes. We also have to be very clear about that. We have to be really good influencers and partners to be able to deliver something back of value to them. This isn't just like someone gave me, a magic wand and I get to do whatever the heck I want. This is really saying, I've stepped back and I'm looking at this. We're trying to achieve this, but I think there's these benefits that exist for you, department we're partnering with. Can I invite you to join me to do this? Is that something that you're willing to do, capable to do, interested to do, and hopefully yield these benefits back? I think that has been probably one of the most, for me, positive aspects of what we've done, because it's changed the model. Like I don't think anyone responds well to coming in and being told what to do. But if you are invited to collaborate, there's an idea and there is a track record of success, right? Nobody wants to get their wagon hitched to something that's like going to go in the ditch. But if it can be on like the highway to success and recognition, and that recognition is not for us, it is for our partners. How do we acknowledge what they have done, what they've made possible, the transformations? And I think that's been a big piece of that cultural transformation that we've done as well.
So the numbers you talked about for CapEx, that's CapEx for investments in your sites to improve their sustainability, energy use,
water use,
et cetera, right?
Yeah, all of those things. Yep.
Okay. I mean, that is definitely a recognition that you're able to make the business case to make those investments and that you've been successful so far. So congratulations.
Yep.
But I'm curious, how do you measure and communicate impact, both internally and externally, to stakeholders to continue to have that positive reinforcement and continue to grow your impact?
Absolutely. So my background is in journalism, in advertising. So if the light bulbs are going on now, maybe you see this connection. But I really do use that aspect of storytelling in my work in sustainability. It's probably one of the best, I would say, skills that I acquired through my education background that was not related to this work that I'm doing, that I lean on very heavily, because it is very, I'm very intentional about communicating the benefits and never letting certainly our management, our leadership understand the benefits back to the business. I did a presentation this morning to a supply chain team. I had 10 minutes. I think I used 4 slides, but I'm really specific about, sometimes it's big overarching things that we need to convey, but then it's about progress. How do you help people understand? And I think one of the most fantastic things is people, when they say to me, and I'll take it, like, I understand this is an organization of 26,000 people spread across so many time zones all over the world. So to think and sit and be like, oh, everyone's going to know everything that we're doing. No, I acknowledge that, and that's not my intent. But anytime I come across people in meetings like this, there were probably 150 people in our call. I had no clue we were this far along and we were doing this amount of things. Great. You left an impression that matters. And that impression that matters starts to just open doors, and it gets people more aware. So I think we're very consistent with how we communicate. We're very specific about quantification. Quantification, data, detail is important. It matters. You do not get fluffy, feel-good things from us. You're going to get the feel-good, but you're also going to get it laced with data that's going to tell a story that helps you understand we're not messing around, right? This is a serious thing, and we are being very specific about how we do that. From a 43% reduction in our CO2 footprint from 2020 to 2024 for scopes 1 and 2. The fact that we operate with 78% renewable electricity, and that's going to jump to 90% renewable electricity in Q1 2026. And here's why that's going to happen. These types of things, data points that people can easily go back to, capture, hold in their mind, that help tell that story and reinforce progress acknowledge challenges. Like that's one thing very early on that I was a proponent of is like, you got to say when it didn't go right. Right? We're not over here just like kicking tail end and no problems. There are things that do not go right. How do we acknowledge them, but also then signal what are we doing to address the things that we learned through the process? So many organizations, I think, talk about, oh, failure's okay. Is it? Is it really? And I think we've tried to make a safe space to acknowledge and be really clear about the failures so that we are modeling the behavior of saying, we don't get it right all the time. And that's okay because we learn from it and then we change course and we address and we adjust. But that's a part of how we operate. And I think that modeling of behavior is also very important, which creates a more open and accepting environment from your stakeholders. From a customer standpoint, one of the things that we've done, once again, happy accidents, I will say. So in 2014, I was at the University of California, San Francisco, presenting like I do to our accounts on sustainability. And once again, this is 11 years ago. So we were in a much different state in terms of our capabilities and the data that we had available. But I did the presentation and they're like, this was fantastic. It would be great if you had kind of everything all in one place. And I stepped back and I was like, you idiot. Yeah, you should be doing this. But that was the precursor to our customer sustainability dashboard. So what we ended up doing was taking data of what they were purchasing and identifying alternative things that they could be purchasing for the same things that they were purchasing to help drive sustainability. So that was a very like Excel PDF-based approach. A couple years ago, we took that and our teams made it digital. It is now a connected data set that takes ERP information from all over the place. It crunches so much data to then come up with a customer-specific footprint. So we've mapped Scope 1 and 2 footprints for the products. We are in the process of getting our Scope 3 footprints for the products started and we'll say completed. That will be a long-term process. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to start rolling those out at the beginning of next year. So we can then go to the customer and say, this is how your footprint has changed because of the work that we've done, maybe some changes you've made in ordering from different products, but this is the trajectory of what your footprint looks like. And if you have a goal to do this, here's how far we've progressed on that. So we're visualizing the data and the approach. We're also now presenting, because of the work that we're doing on the product side, new options and proposing those to them right in that experience where there's an opportunities module that says, you ordered 10,000 of those last year. If you move to this, it's going to reduce your plastic footprint by this. It'll reduce the CO2 footprint by that. Your packaging will go down by this. And that's where, from a communication standpoint, once again, specificity, quantification, transparency. And I think that's then very much my advertising background coming in of how do you tell a compelling story that's grounded in something that you can believe and have trust in. At the end of the day, trust is the most important characteristic that I have. That requirement to make sure we maintain that. Otherwise, I have wasted 18 years of my life and I am uninterested in that. Like keeping that trust is really important. And it keeps us, I think, making sure that we're not cutting corners, that we can maintain that trust because that trust yields so many other benefits.
Thank you for sharing those examples and how it's been, a journey to continue to incorporate what you've learned and the impact that you're making to reiterate and build on your successes and address challenges. For my last question, I just wanted to ask if you had any advice to give to sustainability leaders trying to drive change inside very large organizations. And it sounds like you're, geographically diverse and, have a lot of different business lines. So yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, I go to some conferences. I don't go to a ton, but I will hear people talk about the challenges and the struggles. And we have them too. And that's an important thing to acknowledge. So this isn't saying get over it, but it is realizing the responsibility that we individually have. This is our job. So our job is to figure out how you make it work in an organization. And I think that's the thing that is my recommendation is how do you figure out, how are there not excuses? How do you not become the victim of, my organization doesn't care? Well, I'm going to say, I bet there's some way if you step back, and there are going to be some organizations, it's just not going to happen. But for a lot of people, I think there are rocks that have probably not been overturned that help them really make sustainability compelling for their business, that it could be transformational and reawaken liven up some things that maybe are a bit tired, maybe could use a refresh. I think this is where this is our job. We have got to be change makers to make that happen. You need to be compelling. You need to be energetic. I think one of the things that I love the most is when people on the back end of a public speaking thing or a presentation internally, they're like, "You're just so passionate about this." Like, it's not faking it. I love what I get to do. I'm so thankful. This is what I would not have imagined but I am appreciative of what I get to do. But I think that aids in how I present this to our business, to our organization, how I activate resources, how I ask for things, because I'm compelled, but I've got a track record. So it's not that you've got to take what we've do and just replicate. Start small, right? Be clear. This all started. Everything that I have done with sustainability started by landing on the A list from CDP way back in the day. Because at that point in time, this was prior to the acquisition of the company that I worked for by the current company that I work for. So same company, two different names. But we were among names that we had never been next to, right? Big time names. And so our leaders were like, how in the world how did that happen? I really understood the framework. I understood how to connect the work that we had been building, without a ton of organizational support. It was me. It was me and, sheer personal drive, because I was like, there's something here. And that then led to more things. And it started a momentum that rock is still rolling. But I think that's the realization is you've heard me talk about a whole lot of stuff. It could be overwhelming, but then take that back down. How do you start and get a win that's meaningful? So that means understanding your organization. Is recognition something that matters to your leaders? Is it financial, right? Could it be a return on investment in a CapEx project? And it could be small. It could be something that you do a lighting project at one facility that saves $200,000. That could be enough. And I think it's the realization of connecting that to what matters in your organization. How can you use that to kind of get the door just open enough that starts to give you the emboldenment, if you will, to just go big. And I think that's the thing is this is what this time calls for. It calls for us to know that we can do this, to have the confidence that we can do it, to know there's a network of people out there who are willing to be sounding boards. But I think that's my recommendation is taking responsibility for solving this, but being really smart about how you understand your organization to make it successful.
That's great. Thank you, Jeffrey. I really appreciate your insights and sharing your experience. I hear you on saying start small, look at what are the key drivers for your business and how you can incorporate sustainability to those drivers or excel. So thanks so much for sharing, and I appreciate talking with you today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the conversation, Erika.
Thanks for tuning in to ESG Decoded. We hope this episode has inspired you to take action in your own ESG journey, stimulating ideas for partnership and innovation.
New episodes drop bi-weekly on Tuesday morning. Subscribe now on your favorite streaming platform to stay in the loop.
Join the conversation on social media using @ESG Decoded or visit climbco.com for more resources.
Until next time, keep decoding, keep innovating, and keep making a positive impact.